What's up, guys? Dr. Mo here, digital nomad physician at digitalnomadphysician.com. So I'll take you through something quite unpleasant for a lot of us physicians these days. As you know, as a physician, you're held to the standard. You're held to a very high standard. And when it comes to credentialing, that's one of the most complicated things to navigate, especially for physicians who've had anything in their history, whether it's a criminal thing, it could have been a traffic violation or something that escalated. It could have been altercation. It could have been a malpractice suit. It could have been a medical board investigation. You could have had a license suspension, a DUI. These are normal things that normal human beings will go through. Of course, we can criminalize it and we can say that physicians should never go through something like that. But I think history has shown us that you can still be a great physician and have these things on your record, and you're going to have to navigate it. So how do we navigate it? And what is it that you're going to have to look out for? And what is it that you have to do? So this is a little bit about the credentialing process for physicians who probably have had something in the past. And if you're maybe a resident or a medical student watching this, I don't want you to necessarily get the impression that, oh my God, the whole world's going to come crashing down on me if something bad happens. As a background, I'm a board certified family medicine physician. And somewhere in 2017, 2018, I had an event with a patient that ended up causing me to get reported to the state medical board. And I had a whole medical board investigation happen for Oregon, for Washington, for California. I ended up having a 30-day license suspension in Oregon. I ended up actually later not even renewing my state medical license for Oregon. And then I had a reciprocal board a license suspension in California. And I had an action taken by the Washington board as well. So I've had this crazy shit all over my medical board stuff that I've had to deal with for many, many years now. It's 2022. This happened in 2017 is when the complaint was filed. And it's definitely cost me a lot of grief. And I've unfortunately have been rejected for a lot of opportunities for which I was like, top tier selection. People have reached out to me like, oh my God, we found you on LinkedIn and you're an incredible opportunity for us. And we'd love to have a partnership. And then I'd get to the credentialing process. And it's like, yeah, we can't really do that. We can't take that risk. And I understand it. I think if I was a healthcare startup with certain, risks that I'm already taking, I don't want a physician who might have all this stuff on their record. So let's go through it, kind of understand the process. That's the most important thing. Obviously, I'm still here. I still have a license and I'm still making money. So, I think in the end, we're going to be fine. So the credentialing application process, obviously you're going to be asked questions like, do you have an MD? Do you have a medical license or DO? And do you have an active license? You don't always need an active license for certain types of work. And the next question is, do you need a visa? Do you need to be sponsored? But then you get to this. So kind of going through it bit by bit. Have you ever been denied membership or renewal of membership or been subject to any disciplinary action at any hospital, IPA, which is an insurance group, basically, HMO, PHO, PPO, or other managed care organization, including Medicare Advantage plans, professional society, or any such action? And I think we'll get to Medicare and Medicaid here on the bottom. So have you ever been denied membership or renewal of membership? The most important thing, guys, please understand this. If you lie on this application, or even if you make an error, these applications can be searched by the state medical board in the future, or the actual company. So in this situation, in this case, it was Nexus. This is a very old application from way back in the day before I ever had any issues. I didn't even know what the hell they meant. Like, why would I put yes? Like, what physician would put yes? They must be criminals. So anyway, so if you do lie on this, because all these jobs that you have get reported to the National Physician Database, which we'll get into in a minute. If you lie, unfortunately, this is discoverable. And when you go through some sort of a medical board process in the future, they go back and they see that you lied on your application. That actually can flag a whole other set of problems for you. So I don't recommend that you lie. I instead recommend that you have a really, really solid narrative, which is this is what I do, right? A physician comes to me and says, hey, Dr. Ashori, I need some consulting help because I need to figure out how to navigate this entire medical board thing. I got my lawyer, but I need to navigate how to actually get another job and get back into the swing of things, which is what I did for myself. So don't lie, be honest, and instead we'll work on it with the explanation, the narrative that you have. So have you ever been denied membership or renewal of membership? So this is either one. For example, if you are hired by an insurance company has a contract with you, and an insurance company sends you a letter saying that you did not pass our credentialing, or we choose not to re-credential you. Those are both reportable. Now, that's not common. Most insurance companies will still keep you in their network, even with medical board investigations, even with a termination, even with what is it when you're getting monitored for like substance abuse, drug problems. You still usually will stay in these plans unless you committed fraud. That's when you will get kicked off. Second question: have your clinical privileges at any hospital or healthcare institution been limited, suspended, revoked, not renewed, subject to probationary or disciplinary action or proceeding, or have proceedings towards any of the ends been instituted or recommended by a hospital admin, medical staff committee, or governing board? Okay, basically they're asking, did some hospital group or private medical group, did you have any problems with any of these guys, right? Did they suspend, limit, revoke? Maybe they didn't renew you. They said, hey, you know, Dr. Ashori, thank you for working with us. We choose not to renew your contract. That's still reportable. Or they take some disciplinary action, meaning they fire you, or they don't, you know, they kick you out of the certain committee, or take you out of the hospital group and put you only into the outpatient clinic. All of that is reportable, guys. And all of that, you'd have to answer yes. So for me, I had a medical board investigation. So far, I would still say no. Once I had the medical board investigation, Teladoc and Doctor on Demand both sent me letters, said, hey, we found out about your medical board investigation. Unfortunately, we can't renew your contract. We're going to terminate you. Now, the reason, so as soon as I got the medical board investigation, as soon as I found out that I'm actually being investigated by the state medical board, I looked at all the contracts that I had with all the different telemedicine companies and clinics that I was working with. I looked at the contracts with my lawyer, and Teladoc and Doctor on Demand at that time didn't have anything in their contract that said that it is reportable. You must report any event. So we didn't report it. We did not report it to Teladoc. We did not report Doctor on Demand. We reported to all the other companies, all the other telemedicine companies and clinics that I was working in at the time. But unfortunately, Teladoc and Doctor on Demand sent me letters anyway. They said, we changed our rules during the time that you were, because I was working with them for 2 years. They're like, we changed our rules and you broke our rule. And even though they didn't update the terms and conditions with me, the contract that I signed with them didn't say that I had to report a state medical board investigation to them. They still said, nope, we still have the right to fire you. It's a shame that a medical institution or a medical company or a healthcare organization has the power to do that to you, but they have the power to do it. And you can take legal action. You can get a lawyer and say, no, this was my contract. You're not allowed to do it. But once it's reported to the National Physician Database, it's exactly like a FICA score or like Experian. You know, it's going to be in there. You can just basically write a rebuttal to it. And I'm not going to get into it in this video. That is something I'll touch on at the end of the video, though. So that was something that I did have to report. So here for me, I would say yes, because eventually my license actually was suspended. It was never revoked, but my privileges at those institutions were revoked. And actually one of them was not renewed, which I also had to report. So I would say yes. Have you ever had any professional liability or malpractice coverage canceled, declined, modified, reduced limit, restricted coverage, or any other renewal ever been refused or voluntarily given up? So this often can happen even if you've had a medical board investigation or a criminal event, actual criminal event like a felony. But it can also happen if you've had a malpractice case. And so unfortunately, for those of you who are involved in like a malpractice lawsuit, this is something that could happen. Not common, but it could happen. And so you'd have to say yes here. Have you ever had any previous, or do you have any pending challenges to, or have you ever voluntarily or involuntarily relinquished any medical staff membership? So medical staff membership would be, obviously, you're an urgent care doctor at a clinic and you, because of some pending challenges, or right now you have a pending challenge and you voluntarily, involuntarily relinquished it, meaning you said, I am getting investigated, so I choose to give up my licensure, or you choose to give up my medical staff membership. That's reportable. it's horrible, right? Like, I'm being investigated, so I want to just get rid of all these things I don't have to deal with later. Doesn't matter. You can, when you do it during an investigation, it is reportable. Clinical privileges, professional licenses. So this could be any, like, your state medical license, or narcotic registration. So DEA, result of any investigation or disciplinary action. So this is yes for anybody in my situation. And it's kind of a shame that you have to say yes, yes, yes to multiple of these questions because they sort of overlap, but that's the nature. And I think not only the nature, but I think it's also a little bit of that punitive system that we have in medicine. Well, in the entire US, I think, system altogether, but it is part of it. Have you ever been disciplined, reprimanded, censured, excluded, suspended, disqualified by any of the following: Medicare, Medicaid, CLIA, health plan, state board of examiners, professional conduct board, or any state or federal agency, or the DEA? So this basically, state board of examiners, this is not your state medical board, but your Medicare and Medicaid and your DEA, right? So have they sent you any letters and said that, hey, yo, because of what this happened, we can't, we're also suspending you or keeping you, we're censoring you or excluding you from this or that? Anything like that is reportable. I didn't have anything like that happen with Medicare, Medicaid, or, CMS, basically. No health plan issued anything to me. Professional conduct board, I don't quite know what that is, but I didn't have anything like that happen. Has your specialty board certification or eligibility ever been terminated, suspended, or relinquished? So board certification, for me, I'm a board certified family medicine physician. In fact, when I was board certified with ABFM, which is child of ABMS, American Board of Medical Specialties, they sent me a letter during my suspension, said, because you were suspended by the state medical board, we're suspending you for 30 days. So I wrote my letter back and I said, why are you suspending me? For what, on what grounds? Well, because you were suspended. I'm like, what investigation have you done to justify that you're going to suspend me? And there was no reply. They basically said, we have the right to suspend you for 30 days. And that's when I actually decided that I wasn't going to renew. And I didn't renew for 2 years. And then I ended up getting renewing again. But that's a whole other video as well. Actually, no, I have talked about it on my blog plenty of times. So you could always go read up on that. So if you've been terminated, suspended, or if it was relinquished, that's something that's reportable. Have you ever been asked to surrender your license to practice medicine? So I've never had to surrender my license, but sometimes you could be asked to surrender it and then you're reapplying for it. Even if that happened 10 years ago, you got to report it here because that's discoverable and it could get you into a lot more trouble in the future. Have you ever been convicted of, pleaded guilty, or no contest to a felony, a misdemeanor? These days, guys, a misdemeanor, you'd be amazed. There are traffic violations, certain traffic violations can be misdemeanors. So this is reportable. Or any crime involving dishonesty, assault, sexual misconduct, abuse, or charges pending against you for any such crimes or information, indictment, otherwise. So even if a charge is pending, so for example, one of my buddies at Kaiser Permanente had an issue with a sexual thing outside of work, actually, but it ended up becoming it was a long investigation. It was going to become a felony. And unfortunately, this is just even the process of it is something that's reportable. Even if your medical group wants to continue on, you'll have to report it. And that's why a lot of companies, a lot of medical groups are doing re-credentialing now, right? So you've been credentialed, well, every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, they might have you go through the re-credentialing process. Is there any reason why you do not have or participate in an active medical practice? So like, why are you not seeing patients? And then you'll have to explain that on the bottom. Have you ever been involved in any malpractice litigation? So this is basically if you've ever been sued. Now it says, if yes, provide a summary. If you say yes to any of this, always provide a summary, always explain, always have that narrative. That narrative can be huge and so potent. You got to have a narrative. Have you ever been a patient in a hospital or sanitarium treatment, addictive, nervous, mental conditions? So this is tough because the wording really matters. I have so many lawyers now over the years that it's just easy. I send them an email and say, hey, this is the question I got. How do I answer this? Not this one. But like, for example, imagine you've had substance abuse problems and maybe you were in the hospital and you got admitted for substance abuse, or you were admitted for a psychotic episode. That could be discoverable. That could be an issue. So you do need to discuss that with your attorney. If you are brave enough to just decide what you're going to do yourself, obviously do it. But I've had good luck discussing it with good attorneys to know how to answer a particular question and then what explanation to offer in the bottom. Have you ever been listed on the federal exclusion list. I don't know what that is, but I haven't yet, I guess. I wouldn't even know how. Are you or have you ever been addicted to habitually using narcotics, alcohol, barbiturates, or other mood altering drugs? So now you can see why so many physicians will not go and seek help. Because if this ends up anywhere in your chart for any reason, one of my consulting clients right now is a physician who she prescribed herself, a benzodiazepine, but she was never addicted to it. She did it. She had a bad episode with a partner, and she ended up, doing this. And when she was young, she had alcoholism problems, and so she was admitted to multiple institutions. She completely quit alcohol. She never had any alcohol issues. She literally used that medication, the benzodiazepine, for like 5 days, prescribed herself that. Unfortunately, that was the mistake that she made, and she never had any other issues. They did full investigation, but because she did, and because she didn't disclose the alcohol and all that stuff, it became a huge mess. But she's found a new gig, doing telemedicine very successfully, happy. She's doing great. So that's that. So this is one, and let's go to the next one. Just to give you guys some familiarity with these application processes. So you list your medical license, Dea Registration, professional registration, clinical privileges. So the question at hand is this: Have any of the following ever been or currently are in the process of being denied? So active investigation or ongoing investigation, revoked, suspended, reduced, limited, placed on probation, not renewed, surrendered, investigated, terminated, lost, withdrawn, restricted, reprimanded, disciplined, stipulated, fined, excluded, discharged, made subject to a consent order, or relinquished. Willful and substantial omissions or misrepresentation may result in denial. Not only will it result in potential denial if they do find out that you lied, it is reportable to the National Physician Database, which is a big problem. Now, the National Physician Database is like a 1 or 2 page document normally, based like just saying where you've worked and like what. Actually, I should one day show you guys my NVDP. Sheet. Mine's is now, I think, 48 pages. It is insanely long because it has so much shit from all the different institutions that I've reported and this and that. So it just becomes really nasty and nobody wants to look at that. And that's why it's so difficult for me to find a lot of opportunities for work, which is a shame because the actual event that happened was not even a clinical case, but that's the nature. So DEA registration, medical license. Yep, so I have that explanation here for this particular complaint for a nurse who was fined from Kaiser Permanente. Yeah, so this is the narrative. You gotta know your narrative. Now, I put this little blurb here, but I have attached another sheet to these applications, which explains it really well, but very brief, so that it keeps it as concise as possible. It's a narrative that I've come up with. Like I think I've become a king at creating these narratives now with so many of you guys who've reached out to me and we've kind of sat down together and created narratives. But the narrative is really important. Your lawyer is a great person for this, but the feedback I've gotten from you guys is that when you do connect with your lawyers regarding this, you don't get as much help or you don't feel like it's as useful. And I can understand why. So DEA registration, state medical license, professional registration or license is any professional group that you've been a part of, clinical privileges. Any clinical privilege at a hospital or clinic or volunteer work, all of that counts. In fact, I was denied a volunteer opportunity because of my medical board investigation. So if I applied and I got denied, that is reportable. But remember that, that's just the way it is. Membership rights to any medical staff, that's obviously like a volunteer faculty position or anything like that, or volunteer physician. Institutional affiliation status, so you were part of UCLA and now you're not part of, you got kicked out of UCLA or whatever. Professional society membership or fellowship, so that's board certification. Professional sanction, government administrative agency, that's self-explanatory. Participation in any private, federal, state health insurance program, Medicare, Medicaid, so any kind of insurance program that kicked you off. If yes, please explain illegal substance, criminal offense, and is there any reason you are unable to perform the essential duties? So that's the next one. Let's go to another one. I don't remember which this one was for. I'm including this one just so you guys can get a sense of how I filled out this application. Let's see. Oh, yeah, the explanation page is somewhere else. So it's just going to be yes or no. Are you authorized to work as an independent contractor in the US? Yes. I don't even know which company this was for. Have you had a medical license or ever been suspended, restricted, not voluntary? If yes, explain. Yes, I had a 30-day license suspension in Oregon for ordering an EKG on a colleague and not documenting it. So this is probably from way back in the day, because now I don't do it like that anymore. So what I do is please see attached. And so then I have an attached document, and that's where I kind of explain it. And that's a better way as opposed to explaining it bit by bit. That's something you'll learn once you navigate this stuff. DEA license, have been restricted or suspended? Have your clinical privileges have been suspended, restricted, denied, or voluntarily revoked? Yes. So that was doctor on demand. At that time, I hadn't gotten my teledoc letter yet, probably. Have you ever been excluded from a federal state funded program? Have you currently any privileges? Mental health, including alcohol, drugs, substance, or ability to practice exercise privileges, typically associated with specialty or position in which you apply. And the reason I'm going through this bit by bit and showing you guys, because each of these are phrased a little bit differently. When you understand the difference, you can actually decide whether you need to say yes to this or you can say no to it. And that's something that you'll have to then be able to justify with your attorney, right? So there's a whole process with that. For example, you can include a letter later to the employer and explain your situation. And if you then later get investigated and say, and the medical board says, hey, you lied on this application, you say, no, I didn't lie. In my letter, I explained the situation. That is why I replied no. It helps you. It really does offer you a level of protection. Convicted or pled guilty to criminal offense, criminal charges, and my license suspension was reported to him. Oh, here, has information pertaining to you ever been reported to National Physician? This is kind of one of the newer things that are now popping up. Have you ever been reported to the National Physician Database, NPDB? So my license was reported. So that's that. And then let's go to the next one. This is a Washington. I think this is the state license application. So very similar. You guys can see, like, it's the same questions, like, has it been, or have you voluntarily, or has it been revoked or suspended or restricted? And then a license to practice any profession in any jurisdiction. So this is not just medicine now, right? So if there was some other issue that you had, maybe you had an RN license, maybe you had a acupuncture license, so now that's reportable. Other professional registration or certification in any jurisdiction, specialty or subspecialty board certification, membership on any hospital medical staff, clinical privileges at any facility, including hospital, surgical center, skilled nursing facility, Medicare, Medicaid, professional society membership or fellowship. This is a big one. Professional society membership, you let it go during an active investigation, it could be a problem, and you might have to report it. Now, that's probably not as big of a deal. I totally agree. But you just have to see how likely or how desperately is the medical board trying to go after you and ruin your name. And if that's one angle that they can hang their hat on, they will. So you need to have a backup plan for that. And then, of course, HBO, PPO, IPA, etc. Academic appointments, so you were faculty, volunteer faculty, and that got denied. That's reportable, 100%. And it's something I have had to report when I've gotten denied for my volunteer position. It's something I had to report to the National Physician Database and to the State Medical Board. It's something that you got to do every single time. Authority to prescribe controlled substances, subject to review, challenge, disciplinary, formal. And then the criminal history one, illegal drugs, malpractice, your malpractice history. So yeah, that's more of a state medical board one, is obviously a little bit more involved. Okay, so the National Physician Database reporting requirements and query access. What is this? Why did I pull this up? The reason is this is a requirement now for a lot of agencies and groups, and it's actually just now really taking off. So basically any issue that you had with any employer, with anybody who worked with you, any relationship you had, if it's terminated, stopped, suspended, decreased, limited, anything like that, it has to be reported by that institution here. Then usually it's an insurance company, usually it's a medical group, the HR group, your physician supervisor. All of them are responsible to report it here, because if later you're found of having done something much worse, and they're like, why did Teladoc not report Dr. Rashori to the NBDP? they can go after Teladoc. So it is a state requirement. It varies from state to state, but it is a requirement. So medical malpractice payer, if I had a case against me and I reported it to my medical malpractice carrier, they have to report it. State medical board and dental boards, hospital systems, professional societies, any kind of professional societies. It's the California Medical Association, right? A classic one. DEA, HHS, so Human Health Services, I think, and Inspector General's Office, the CMS. So all of these are reportable. Who may query or request information? So this is kind of like who can actually request information regarding the NBDP. Anybody can request it. So just forget that. Forget that you're going to be able to limit it. So peer review organizations, these are third-party organizations, private accreditation organizations. So if there is a private credentialing company, which pretty much all the credentialing companies these days are private, they find out something about me or they decide to let me go, their HR reports something to them, they do have to report it to the NBDP. Every time they report anything, it gets added. An extra page, an extra page, an extra page. And so then the NBDP report just balloons from there. Obviously, state licensing agencies, law enforcement, medical fraud control units for CMS classically. Like if you were suspected of some sort of fraud or you didn't report something, then that's an issue. State agencies and the federal government agency health plans. Yeah. Okay. So what do I want to say to kind of close this? Oh, first of all, one last thing. Let's go up here to resources. For healthcare professionals, and you can do a self-query. Okay, what is a self-query? Self-query. The self-query basically it's $4. It's super simple, and $3. Okay, sorry, it's $3, and you can get a report just so you can see what is in your professional record, your professional credit history. Right, your professional credit history will have a full printout of everything that's there. And from there, you can actually reply back to it. So here you can see responding to a report. You can do that, and you have that option. And something you probably want to undertake with your attorney, but you have the option. You can certainly do it yourself. So stepping back, right? A lot of this is super scary. A lot of this is really frustrating. A lot of this is like, how do I get past it? You're a physician. You got into a fight with your significant other. You beat up your significant other. Now you have a felony assault. You got a DUI. Maybe you got arrested for speeding because you talked back to the police officer. You have an arrest record. You have a DUI. Very classic. A lot of physicians have DUIs. You are under the monitoring plan, which is, those of you who know what that is. Basically, you drank too much alcohol, you're considered an alcoholic, you're dependent on certain substances, and now you have another physician who monitors you at work and basically has to write a monthly report saying that you're okay and you're not showing any signs of using any substances and you're complying with everything. And that's really complicated, right? That's really tough to navigate. You're going to answer yes to a lot of these, but you're going to create one concise, small, short paragraph explaining exactly what the situation is and that you're open to discussing it further. You can offer more information with your attorney or whatever, but that narrative is going to be so important because it's going to help you get past the next step. One of the things I recommend is when you're applying anywhere, talk to the recruiter, talk to the credentialing department, really reach out and say, hey, look, I have this issue. I don't really want to apply and get rejected because it's something that I have to report. But I do want to get a sense. With my situation, would you guys hire me? Is it worth it for me to apply? And I know that can be really complicated because you don't know when to say this. For example, you're applying for a position at UCLA. You want to be an urgent care doctor at UCLA. You want to be one of the orthotrauma on-call per diems at UCLA. When do you report the situation that you have? My suggestion is when you first talk to the recruiter, right, kind of get an informational session, also say, hey, look, I want to discuss this situation. I do have something on my record. It is a 30-day license suspension. It is a malpractice case. It is this, it is that. What is the process? Whom should I discuss this with before going to the next steps? Because you know what it's like to go to UCLA, to get a job at UCLA. You're going to talk to the recruiter. Then you're going to get an interview with the chief of the department, with one of the medical directors, and probably another physician. And then you're going to get an interview with the head of HR or head of credentialing. And so that's all part of the normal process. And you don't want to go through that if you know in the end, once the application comes and you fill this out, you're going to immediately be rejected. So asking that recruiter, and then when you have that initial session with the physician, be very professional. Hi, I'm Dr. Ashori. I'm interested in your urgent care position. I'd love to find out more. They tell you a little bit about the urgent care, how much you can make, what your qualifications are. They're going to ask you some questions. You ask some questions. And at the end, you're going to say, hey, I just do want to leave some time to discuss this issue that I've had in my professional history. Now, it was an issue with the State Medical Board of Oregon. It was not a clinical matter. I just did not cooperate with the investigators when I ordered this EKG on a colleague, and I didn't document it. But I never assumed to be their all right. I never assumed to be their physician. So anyway, you have that explanation. And so the point is, do discuss it, do bring it out into the open as soon as you can. It'll make your life much easier. If you guys have any questions, email me, drmo@digitalnomadphysician.com. Take care.